It seems that some parts of it has become a discussion in all the other groups as well. We were talking about political accountability, about stronger partnerships, about how can we target the resources, so to say. How can we target the resources to the people movements? I had a very nice sharing with the people from Koch FM, and a very interesting movement, so to say, and I know that a lot of you know more than I do about it, but it was very, very good for me to know as well. And we're talking about this kind of conference, where we have an arena where we meet from the political agenda, the expert agenda, but also the people agenda, so that we can share the experience and we can share some space. And Raphael had a good sketch about Kenya and Sweden and what is the sharing space that we can do. So my question was, how can we have a top-down, bottom-up at the same time, both formal and informal? And there's no easy answers to that. But I think this conference and other meetings are getting are taking some steps ahead, so to say. And I think the last thing I want to say is that we can share a lot of experiences and we can learn a lot from each other. And we have a lot of challenges in Sweden right now, how to involve people and how make democracy work even better, and how have a good both rural development, but also sustainable urban sustainable cities and so on. And there's so many things that we can learn from each other when we work with it. And your last question?
Yes, and now you only have like 30 seconds to answer that.
Very nice, thank you. I'm in the working group on Africa, and we had very many subjects brought up in this working group, but not the one that I learned in this conference. So I will sort of bring what I learned here, to that working group. And we're also working a lot with land strategies and so on, and I think this is good knowledge for us as politicians to ask questions to our experts in very many ways. And I also learned that SIDA is very good in working with cities development in very many ways. So thank you for that knowledge as well.
Right now, communicate with Swedish politicians, and one thing that fell out very positive was why not go there and visit them, and we were kind of open to that. So I'll just bring it up. That was something that really brought a positive thing into the discussion. You can go there and make the attention from the local politicians that is very absent. So that was just a very good inspiration and an appeal to the other politicians.
Okay.
About almost all aspects of this, but I did make some notes. One was that urban development issues need a cross-sectoral approach, both politically and also in aid organizations and so on, because normally aid work is channeled through environment issues or women's issues, as you all know. And this has everything. This is environment, energy, women's issues, equal rights, democracy, and everything. And that needs to be in policy as well, which I hope it is. We also realize that we need politicians of all levels to cooperate, both here and there, because it's when you start mixing foreign policy thinking with local city council planning, that is when you start to understand at least part of this, and that holds also in the local area. In Mumbai, for example, there are these typical conflicts of interest between the local authorities and regional and state and federal authorities, and they need to understand each other better, because they also see good examples on the ground. One good example on the ground was that the Ravi is much better than many richer cities and rich areas in recycling garbage, for example. There are good examples that are not always shown, so politicians need knowledge of. As to democracy and citizens empowerment, India has democracy, as you know, and the voter turnout and voter activity is actually quite high in this area, higher than in the richer areas of the city, which we hope will lead to also better representation and understanding of the urban poor in the deciding bodies. Already it is almost twice as high in political engagement in the poorer areas. So we hope for this, and I also hope for my party, from the Moderate Party, which is the same as government and the Minister of Development. I just hope we will continue, and I think I can promise we will continue to focus on these areas in the government development policy for years ahead. It will take many years, of course. Thank you. Someone from the group wants to add something?
To the journalist who has to deal with politicians, let me say I'm totally amazed that Swedish politicians can have such an attention span that they can sit through these kind of discussions and with serious intent. Second, that they can speak so briefly, which I have never heard in my 35 years of journalism. And thirdly, I want to say Sweden, in my years of covering UN conferences, the Nordics in general and Sweden in particular has always been the country that has been the most progressive, taken the most progressive positions on women's issues, on habitat, on environment. And I certainly hope that that kind of leadership is something that Sweden will continue to give on development issues, particularly on urban issues, given that half the world is urban. Countries like mine, half of it will be urban by 2050. So these urban issues that we've discussed for the last 2 days are really the issues of the future of development of so much of the world.
Both sides. The coin has two sides. So what we realize is that the governments in many funding agencies, they are always interested in reading the reports from the government, but not comparing the reports with what is actually happening on the ground. So what we are trying to say is that read the coin from both sides. Read the report and go and look on what is happening. Because on the other side, you'll find that the Swedish government say, okay, we are no more funding South Africa. I'm giving an example. It is rich now, it is a democratic country, blah, blah, blah. But the poverty thereof is so high above the sea level. And because the agency is convinced by the report from the government and not knowing what is happening on the community level. So that's why we were saying, try to look at both sides of the coin, not only one side of the coin.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.